First things first, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm enjoying this. It's a nice day.
Okay. Well, I don't have a lot of time, I think, so I'd like to jump straight into it. When it came to English Graffiti, the band took a time off before working on it. So, what did you do? Where did you go?
I went to Iceland for a while. I was in Iceland for a while, and for like a month maybe or something. And I was just like had a cabin in the middle of nowhere where I just locked myself off for a few. I don't know how long I was there for. It was like, yeah. And then we started working straight away. Really, like we didn't really take that much time off.
What did you do in Iceland?
Not much. Basically nothing. I'm from Iceland, so it made sense. Just went and hung out with family and just chilled out. We hadn't really had any time off for like 4 years up until that point, so it was like the first time we actually took any time off.
Was it something the band needed?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think we were really burnt out towards the end of 2013. We were like, we had been powering through for a long time and it was taking a lot of toll, but yeah, but I think we needed to go back into the studio.
Would you say then, well, it wasn't that long and you kind of started on the next record?
Well, the thing is, we started pretty much straight away. Like we took a few weeks off and we sort of chilled out a little bit. But we started like exploring pretty soon, pretty early into 2014. But we weren't really pushing ourselves in terms of timing. Like we wanted to find a voice rather than like make it in a certain time, you know. So we worked a lot, but we weren't working on a deadline.
Okay.
You know?
And then was it just song ideas, sketches, or?
Yeah, lots of stuff. Like we basically just sort of explored every sort of possible way of writing a song. Like so far, we had always been like, up to that point, we had always been like songwriting had always been like a solitary pursuit in the sense that like we wouldn't necessarily write together. But in this particular turn around, like, we sort of like got like houses in the middle of nowhere in England and sort of locked ourselves in there for a couple of weeks at a time and just wrote and did lots of stuff, and you know.
You say you didn't work with a deadline, so what were you looking for?
Well, I think it was just so important for us to make a record that like we felt was important. Like I felt like it was something different. Like we had basically sort of ostensibly we had sort of made 2 garage records in the sort of roughest sense of the word. And we'd done it like quite quickly, and sort of, I don't know, we sort of made a lot of emphasis of like being like this sort of rough and ready live band, and we sort of figured that like, I don't know, we sort of wanted to be representing our times a little bit more in terms of like embracing technology and production, and you know, use the studio as a tool rather than like a vehicle, yeah, so we just went searching for a sound, really.
What ignited this idea that you wanted to be more of a current in a way?
I think it's we were a little bit out there on our own in a sense that like there are not many bands that like do basically live records anymore, and we had done that on Come of Age. And whilst it was all like it was all really fun and great, like when we went into the melodic calling stuff, we went and worked with a guy called John Hill very briefly, and he had a very sort of anarchic approach to music making, and like majority of the stuff that he used was just like shitty little Casio keyboards, and just like a very it's like a very anything goes type of mentality, and we got really inspired by that. And like, why constantly hide yourself behind like what can be replicated on stage rather than trying to come up with something that cannot be replicated ever?
In hindsight, then, if you look back at the previous 2 albums, were you restricted in a way?
Oh yeah, but absolutely. But I think it was like self-imposed. Okay. Like I think like a lot of rock bands do this, and I think like rock music is currently like one of the very one of the very few forms of like music that doesn't seem to be like progressing or going anywhere at the moment. Like whilst everything else is like quite anarchic and crazy, and like people are really up for experimenting in whatever way they see fit, rock music is still like, we play these power chords and there needs to be an open hi-hat here, you know.
In your opinion, because you've talked about this pop mentality, where pop does have this mentality. Why do you think it is with rock? It's more difficult with rock, or rock doesn't seem to follow that line?
I don't think it's. I think everything sort of becomes stale at some point. And I think like rock, it's just rock's time right now. I don't think it's going to be stale forever.
Right.
Like, I really don't think it's like dead or anything. Like I'm not, and I feel like pop will be really stale in like a couple of years' time again. And like I think it's just cyclical. And like last time there was like exciting movement in rock is about 10 years ago, in my mind anyway. And maybe even a little bit longer. But no, actually no. There's been lots of exciting stuff. But currently it just doesn't seem to be very much exciting stuff in my mind anyway.
So in that sense, then, what attracts you to this pop mentality? This
I think it's the anarchy. Like it is the, it is. Sort of, if you listen to sort of modern production, like some of it's so outrageously out there that like 5 years ago you wouldn't never imagine having heard that. And like there's both like there's a combination of like extremely complicated structures and total minimalism. So it's like it's a really interesting time for pop music in my mind. Yeah.
And so you say you went on these writing sessions in all over England. So what was the mindset? Or where did you want to go? You say we're looking for a sound to something defining. Where did you start? We started making a lot of wrong turns. We made a lot of really terrible demos that like will never see the light of day, but are equally really important in the sense that like they brought us sort of, I don't know, like making bad decisions means you at least make that decision and then you won't make that again. And like, I don't know, sort of, we started with like a really broad scope of what we could allow ourselves to do. Basically just whatever comes to your mind is fine. No idea is a bad idea, shit like that. But, and then just narrowed it down. Like, and it wasn't until really late in the process of recording the album that we sort of found exactly what it was, you know. So all of that work that we'd done up until that point was basically just shelved. But it was still important to have done it, you know, because otherwise we wouldn't have reached the place that we wanted to be. Was it a specific moment then when things turned around?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was probably the first session that we did with Cole and Dave Fridmann, the two producers of the album. The first session that we did with them was in June 2014, and we did 4 songs, one of which was called Denial. And at that moment, when we recorded it, we went in with like a sort of slightly sort of cold, sort of Arctic rock song, and it was like a really terrible version of like a Licky Lee tune, which like we were just terrible at it. But we went in with that, and but Cole and Dave just like totally reimagined the thing on the spot, and that was a really inspiring moment, which meant that like we used that as like a little bit of a blueprint from that moment onwards, in the sense that like well, it's okay to just take things and rip them apart, you know.
And then, well, you mentioned this experimenting side and exploration. How important was it then to have Dave in the studio and then to have?
He's a genius, but like he's clearly like having been like a fan of music for a long time. I think like Dave Fridmann is one of the few sort of names that like you've got like dreams of working with since you were just a kid, pretty much. So doing it was obviously like, it was very inspiring. But he's brilliant. He's a sort of a sonic wizard, and you don't really understand where he's going with stuff. But then he sort of when he sort of reaches it, you're like, ah, okay. It's got a very interesting palette.